Hello, my name is Georgia Shara. Welcome to this video. We talk a lot about feminine alchemy here and light language and evolving in this time, in this life with embodiment through soul embodiment, connecting into our body. And today we're going to be talking about boundaries because boundaries are the biggest thing that I come across with pretty much every single person that I have probably ever worked with has felt like their boundaries have been crossed in some way, shape, or form. They don't seem to know where their boundaries are or how to even implement boundaries. And I have definitely gone through this myself. I still have to work through this and be very diligent with how I dish out my energy because that is been a conditioning to give a lot out and to be there as a space holder and a supporter. I think if you're naturally someone who is inclined to healing and supporting others and is that kind of helper kind of archetype, you can find yourself like overly giving. And we do need to look at where that's coming from because there's a part of us oftentimes that feels like if we are helping, if we're giving out a lot, then we'll try because we really want to receive love and we want to receive acceptance and receive being liked. So we please and overly people please and give a lot of ourselves out in order to try and get something back. But it becomes very draining because we're putting more out than we actually need to, and other people are a bit like, okay, that's fine if you want to give me that, but I'm not gonna get necessarily reciprocate that, and then there becomes bitterness and there becomes resentment and this sort of thing. So we're gonna look a little bit about what are the common signs and some of the ways that we can actually overcome and build up some healthy boundaries. So, to begin with, the way that this can actually look in your life is that, again, like I just said, overgiving, people pleasing. So, you're giving out a lot. It feels like you're always putting more out to other people than what you're getting. And this can obviously result in bitterness. You can actually attract a lot of narcissistic type traits in people who really push over you and you feel like you're that empathic one who's always giving lots of advice and helping others and doing all these things for other people, and that is a result of just not really having the boundaries, and then people tend to take from that because they are trying to get something else out of you as well, right? So this can look like having difficulty saying no. So even if you're like trying not to, you know, give out these boundaries, but you really struggle to say no when people ask you to do things and when things come up and someone says, "Oh, can you help me with this?" Like you're the one that ends up being like, "Okay," even though you know that that's not necessarily the right thing to do or what feels most aligned for you. And you can often feel that in your body, like, or you're meant to do something else, and you end up dropping other things and that are more important, like for you and your evolution to start doing something for other people. Like I have even been doing that. Like last year, I fell into a few situations like that where I felt like I needed to help people because I kept seeing their situation seem worse than me getting on and doing the thing that I need to do. Like I need to drop that to hold them through that, like I was going to be that one. And again, there was this underlying condition that I can really see where I want to be valued and I enjoy being valued. So I say yes to these things because I think, oh, everyone, they always say these nice things to me. Oh, you're the one who's able to do this. You can get this done, or you're able to look after this person, aren't you? Because they, you're so good with kids, or you're so good with people who have lost capacity and all this sort of thing, because I am very good at holding space for all kinds of people. I can hold a lot. I can hold a lot of people's shadow. I can hold a lot of, darkness. I can hold a lot of trauma for other people. I'm very good at doing that. So people see that, and oftentimes I can get lumbered into doing things that actually it's not really my place. It's not really my time or the appropriate situation, or I'm not given the fair exchange for that. So there's another element to that is where although you think maybe you're not, sometimes people don't realize they're not putting up boundaries because they're sort of saying, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And they're getting something in return, but you're not really getting like the full worth of what is the exchange for what you're doing. And that is still crossing your boundaries because people aren't fully respecting it. They're asking you because they think that you will do it for less. You will do it for cheaper. I used to see this with my dad. He used to do all sorts of work for people all the time. He'd go and help with everybody's jobs in their houses and everything because he's a carpenter. And he would do it for next to nothing, sometimes nothing. Would just go and help people. Obviously, he still does this with some family members, which is fine. You're going to do it with your parents, your elderly parents. But he got to a breaking point, and I saw that with him first before me, where he had really had a breakdown and everything around that, which I won't go too much into detail because it's his story. But you see this it's men and women as well, like this is not just a female only thing, although of course from my perspective like there is like etiquettes I think with women sometimes which is quite interesting, but I think also with men that they're seen as the provider, they're seen as the one who can fix things and do things, and I think a lot of men actually have their boundaries crossed a lot of the time because um, they're seen as the one who's got to hold the fort all the time. It's very hard for them to hold the fort all the time, and they haven't taken care of themselves. They're abandoning themselves. So you may feel abandonment. And this is a clue. If you start feeling betrayal, abandonment, resentment, bitterness towards other people, when your health starts to take a toll and you start to feel very burnt out, very fatigued, and maybe even start getting autoimmune diseases. People who have things like MS, I think are very much those sorts of people who put a lot of themselves out and they don't replenish themselves enough in because they're not looking at themselves. Everyone else is the problem, everyone else has got problems and they want to help fix them. So do you feel like a fixer? Like this is another thing. You may feel prone to being the fixer, the one who's always in amongst everyone else's stuff. You may look like you're the one who's the mother archetype, whether you are actually a mother or not, um, who's always like holding the fort and everyone comes to you for things all the time. And that can feel kind of empowering, but it can also be deterring away from nurturing yourself. So lastly, another point I'm going to point out, which is an interesting one, is feeling unheard, feeling really like your boundaries are just getting bulldozed, even when you try and voice boundaries, even when you try and put everything together. And this might happen because either you've let boundaries kind of come into over before, and then when you try and put them in place, people just don't understand that. They don't acknowledge it or can see how you are even putting boundaries in place. Like they're not used to that. So this can really happen if you feel like you're someone who's like, oh, I've been trying to do all this boundary work. I'm listening. Yeah, 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 I've done all that. And I'm trying to put these boundaries, I'm still getting my boundaries crossed. It's like, well, maybe this is why, because you've had the experience of letting boundaries being crossed, that now when you try and do it, people are just not listening because they're not used to it. They're not used to you having boundaries. And this can also look like feeling that unheard because when you try and bring boundaries across, you don't even know how to really give boundaries. Like you want boundaries, but you haven't had the skill set to put boundaries in place. So again, this very much goes into childhood where we was conditioned to be the nice, the people pleaser, the helper, listening, and the parents, they know best. They you've got to listen to your parents, listen to your adults. So maybe when you get older, your parents are still telling you what to do, still demanding how you live your life, and they're crossing your boundaries. And you're like, hey, mom, like, can you stop? Like, I'm an adult now. And they're still doing that. That's crossing your boundaries because they haven't crossed the line and realized I'm their mother or their father, but I'm not their caregiver anymore. They are an adult. They are caregiving themselves now. And that is the difference. They haven't learned to let go and really allow that person to grow into their own being. And I can understand it. Of course, that's going to be hard because you have a lot of love and care, but we need to learn to create those boundaries with those people who are very close to us in our lives. So now we're going to talk about creating boundaries. First, you're going to want to learn how to build them all together. So the first step is being very aware and acknowledging your triggers, acknowledging and being aware when you feel like your boundaries are being crossed. So just start to take note of that. See how it feels in the body when you do something. Does that feel right? Did that really feel like a genuine yes or a no in my body? Because your body is going to be the signal, because there's going to be sensations in the body that give you that indication whether there is like that felt good or not. Because again, those signs that we spoke about earlier, if you feel that you feel depleted, if you feel unheard, if you feel like you're stretching yourself, if you feel exhausted, or if it starts flaring up some kind of autoimmune conditions, then this is your sign. It's a very loud sign, and it doesn't have to get that loud if you're able to feel it from the beginning. So start to observe, what was that initial feeling? Did you feel contraction? Did you feel tightness? Did your voice feel a bit funny? Did your voice change? Was it a bit like, yeah, I'll help, with like a high pitched voice, or a low mumbling, like, oh yeah. You feel like sighs and drops in the body when you feel like you've got to go and do something you don't really want to do. Like, just whatever that is, notice that. And this is where you might want to have like a journal, a boundary journal, where you write all the different things that come up for you so you can take note. You might not need to go that far. You could just feel it and observe it in the body. But if you're someone that likes journaling, then this might be a good task for you. So that's one. Then you want to start practicing your yes and your no's. So this can become very simple, where there are like, someone says to you when you're in the supermarket, do you want a shopping bag? And you think, oh, I've got a shopping bag, but I feel like I need to buy this shopping bag. They've just told me that it's like a special edition shopping bag to put all my food in, and they try to upsell me. You're going to be able to say no to those simple little things when you're walking past like the person in the supermarket who's, I'm giving lots of supermarket points because don't you notice that when we're shopping, like there's lots of opportunities to be sold to that feeds on our vulnerability of being a people pleaser. Say, for instance, you got someone who's like got some freebies, they're like got little sticks of cheese or maybe some like spritzer or something, I don't know, some kind of juice that's on offer, and they're like, hey, come and have a drink and try. Do you like it? Oh, look, we've got this. If you buy this together today, then you'll get it for this. And then you think, oh my God, I've just eaten the cheese. I've got to buy it now. Or can you go, no, thank you, and you walk out, and you're able to just like not buy the thing, and you're able to just have the experience and not put anything above needing to please that person who's trying to sell you something above yourself. It's like these are the little nuances to start with, but then come up to the bigger situations where you're trying to communicate boundaries with your partner, your kids, and other family members. Because they're the big ones that I think that are the hardest ones to overcome those boundaries, because they're not used to the boundaries if we've been brought up to people please in a certain way, if we're to give a lot out in a certain way, or to react and experience family dynamics in a certain way, then that is when we have the hardest trouble. So easing up into those moments in time when you feel that you've established a level of knowing what your boundaries are. Maybe you've written a list of sort of things that you've analyzed within the family dynamics, for instance, or a certain friend. You sort of think like this, let's do an example with a friend. So say you've got a friend and this friend is always just like ringing up, come on, I want to go out for a coffee with you, I want to go do this with you. And you think, I've got to go and see the kids today. Like, I'm meant to be taking them thing, and they want me to go and do that. And usually you always end up going doing whatever your friend says they want to do. Oh, come on. Come on, you said you were gonna have it. You'd come out for a drink with me. All right, all right. Okay, so this is my list of things. Okay, all right. I need to like tell them that I don't want to be phone every day, and we can't see each other like every couple of days. Like it's got to be. I want to only be able to see you once a week. Start writing these things down, and then you're gonna voice them. So you either sit and have a chat with this person, and you don't need to bring it all into them and make it about them, but you can say, hey, look, I've been going through this massive healing journey, and what I'm experiencing is that I need to create some more boundaries in my life to support myself because I've been very tired and I've got a lot going on, and I'm going to make things a lot easier. And I'm choosing now that I'm not going to see my friends every day or every couple of days. I'm gonna make it just once a week incursion. So I'm just gonna say to you, can we set like a weekly date that we roughly have either this day or that day to see each other, and then what we'll make it that's our goal, because I don't have the capacity right now to hold anything else, and I hope that you can appreciate that. And that would be how you start to establish those boundaries, because sometimes if we start doing this, I don't know if you've ever have experienced this, where someone is intruding on your boundaries and you suddenly you realize it, and then you come into the reactive stage, the bitter stage, the, oh, this isn't so good stage. I think I'm gonna just bail out of this stage. And you start to ignore them, shut them off, and they think, what have I done? I don't understand. We used to hang out with each other all the time, and now they're blocking my calls and they're not picking up. Why? Because they've realized that this is crossing a boundary, but they can't voice their boundary. So instead of doing that, we need to be able to communicate. So learning communication, learning how to communicate your boundaries, because people will not know if you start going, oh, and even just go, oh no, stop calling me. Like, you're calling me all the time. I don't want to see you all the time. Then they're gonna be like, oh, that's a really hard rejection. I don't understand where this is coming from. See the difference to one when we say, hey, like that was really, like they could say, oh wow, okay, I really value that you're gonna create some boundaries. And if they then overstep those boundaries, say, hey, do you remember I said that I'm not able to do that this week? We can do this day or that day. And they go, okay, yeah, I remember you said that. And you have to keep maybe bringing that up, but it will eventually start to make sense to the people around you who have been used to your lack of boundaries. They'll start to realize your boundaries and start to respect them. And if they don't, then maybe they're kind of people that you need to really step back from and take that choice to step back from it. Even if you need to tell them, write a letter, send an email, but really give people the chance to fully know your story, know your side. You don't have to just run away and hide, because I think that's what happens a lot with people who lack boundaries. And I'm saying this from a point of view that definitely used to go through this more so in my early 20s, where I used to feel like my boundaries were being so crossed, and I used to just be suddenly repelled by a friend, and I would just really cut them out, because I would just feel like, oh my God, they've crossed me, they've hurt me, they've done this, they've done that, oh, this is not okay. And I wouldn't know how to communicate that and manage that. And so I would really start to cut people off as an easier way than communicating those dynamics and what wasn't working and what wasn't healthy for me. Or they would end up being terrible fusions of arguments, because it would just bubble up to the point where one of us was just like not happy with one another. And it doesn't need to get to that point, right? We can make sure that we learn from within, we observe, we write notes, we get really clear on our boundaries, write those boundaries down, and then we start to implement them and we start to voice them and communicating them with people. Or we have to start to make choices of distancing ourselves from those who really truly will not listen and will not respect, because those kinds of people, maybe they are more selfish, or maybe they have narcissistic traits that are just going to keep trying to grab. If there are energy siphon vampiric type people in your life, then do your best to minimize that experience with them and do your best to uphold your energy before you go in. So lastly, I'm going to talk about energy boundaries. So if you are energetically holding up a life force field, then energetically people feel that about you. Okay, and they're not going to cross that as much because it's there, it's like a silent steel of armor, that's saying, do you really want to cross this energy? Because she's got her boundaries. You put a little sprinkle of your attempts to vampire that stuff on my energy, my life force. It's gonna it's gonna be a pretty hard face pill to uh, pill to swallow for you. It's like, so how we could do this in the Tao, we look at our three Wei Qi fields, which is like a white Wei Qi field, and then a blue Wei Qi field that goes around you, and then a pinker and purple Wei Qi field that goes all the way out around you. So these energy fields that go out. And my favorite one that I like to implement, so I do those three, and then I also include a divine crystalline golden light around my energy, 360 degrees. It's like a sacred geometry it is sacred geometry and it's this beautiful energy field that's like crystalline frequencies that holds and supports my life force. And I also work with my guides and I make sure that they're there in the field because everyone's carrying different stuff and sometimes we're not always the ones with this with the eyes to see um that our guides that our guides could see in those other realms if someone's there that has like an entity or something that wants to attack us and siphon us and cross our energetic boundaries without us really fully being aware of that. If we're not fully in tune with those sorts of boundary crossing elements, then holding and getting used to a team, getting used to having a family, a soul family, who holds and supports you throughout your life. This is really important, connecting and having a really great relationship with the beloved, with the creator. All of these things help to strengthen our boundaries as well, because if we don't have a very good relationship to those and ourselves, so this includes you become your own guide and support when you've got really good intuition and you're really switched on with how your body feels and what's in your energy field, then when other people come in with their energy and their beliefs, their perspectives, their thought forms, you can feel and detect that a lot easier in your field, and then you're not letting that siphon in and or suck you into their beliefs and what they want and need out of the situation. You can say, okay, I can see that's your belief that we need to go and do this, but I can feel in my field that I'm going in this direction. So, you know, that's the way it's going to go. And that's just how you need to develop that, and that does take time if that's not something you've developed before. I would highly recommend and going through those spiritual paths of energy cultivation. And this is what I teach in the Feminine Alchemy membership and my one-to-ones is really getting in tune with the body, getting in tune with the energy bodies so that you can support your energy field, getting used to and understanding your boundaries so that you don't have people trampling over you all the time because it's exhausting and we don't want to keep living in that paradigm of being the empathic victim who's always exhausted and manipulated by others. And it's always this person, that person that's doing all these different things to us when actually we just need to get real clear on our boundaries. We need to get real clear on our energy bodies. We need to get real clear on who we are, what our desires are, what we are truly navigating in our lives, and so that we can detect when anything else is coming into our field. So I hope that this has been of help to you. Please give us a comment to tell me if there's any of these that you've overcome or any practices that have been really helpful for you. I'd love to hear about them, and I'll see you in the next video.